Hello, wanted to do a little podcast on Candida albicans. This is found in a lot of situations. The sugar and well, I think it's called arabinose. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's the product of this yeast multiplication. There's byproducts of that. Arabinose is one of them. And it's kind of hard to break down. It's resistant to these proteases, and it becomes kind of a pain. And then you also have tartaric acid, which comes in and also destroys and creates almost a difficult to redigest environment. It's very sticky, and this also creates neurofibers. And then from there, there's kind of like you're basically in Pandora's box at that point, to where the cell firing, the signal firing, the neurotransmitter, everything gets kind of screwy once we have this thing set up. So you find a lot of this this yeast outgrowth, arabinose, tartaric acid combination in autism. You find it also in Alzheimer's. And there's a lot of other diseases, from autoimmune and other diseases, that have this in their etiology, that these parts are part of the reason why these cells are not being able to communicate properly. It's very logical to a certain degree. So neurofibrillary or fibrillary tangles keeping communication from happening properly. So I think it's called cross-linking. And the more that this cross-linking is set up, the more that these receptor sites become blocked, and they can't receive. And one of the biggest chunks of what would you call the biggest lack of receptivity is towards B6. B6 receptors get blocked everywhere. I think it has to do with this lysine receptor, and the lysine receptor is blocking the B6. So the B6, because of this, not the lysine alone, but lysine, this lysine combination is blocked from doing its action, which would allow for the B6 to be used. And so the B6 is being thwarted, and so that's why B6 has been such a high, a well-reported, I guess you could say, something that really helps the gut in that way. There's been studies on autism, just to pick one example, on B6, and there's a high correlation between the two, that this is one of the missing factors. I mean, everything becomes missing once the gut really gets out of control, because your absorption starts to go awry, and then you're not absorbing the vitamins, the minerals, everything starts to, including magnesium and everything else. So taking a transdermal route of magnesium is intelligent here, because we're not going to go through this weak spot. We're going to go straight through the cell tissues, and we're going to keep saturating the body for months and months, or at least 3 or 4 months, to get that saturation there, and let the body keep receiving that and pulling that into herself through the sweat glands, through the acidification processes at the level of the skin. The skin does have a flora on it. There's an acidity there, just like sauerkraut has an acidity and a flora. Your skin has that too, and those processes start to affect the mineral. And then the mineral starts to be affected by the fat processes, which are further down in the derm. And so we start to be able to create a sort of food which is broken down to some degree for the body. And externally, we create these molecules, these L-form molecules, these threonates and glycinates and citrates and malates and stuff, but the body creates them too. So everything we're creating outside, the body creates inside, but you just have to figure out how to, not hack it, but how to get in there and do it right. And so the transdermal route is the one advised by our ancestors. If you look back at Greek and Roman ancestry, cure, bath, thalasso kind of history, we see this absorption of magnesium through the skin. And so now we're getting back to that, but in a modern format. So, magnesium dependent glutathione is one of the healers of this problem that we're describing, these tangles. And it can come in there and start to take that apart, but it's highly dependent. Glutathione production is highly dependent on magnesium. Not only the magnesium ions as part of it, but also as how the ATP cycle is regulated. The ATP cycle is how glutathione is going to come to fruition, and that cycle is stabilized by magnesium. So once again, all the levels being down and low, we're going to have kind of a sabotaged train wreck on all of these processes that could have been much more efficient with high levels of magnesium. So anti-fungals, of course, work in this environment for this Candida and autism, and there's a lot of good results on that, because these azoles or these types of anti-fungals allow for, they kind of break little holes in the cells, or they break holes in those cell walls. They kind of take apart that structure, the tangled structure, and it starts breaking that apart. Not either at the cell wall level of the fungi or at their creation level or whatever. And then, as we know, magnesium comes back in on the other level when there's healthy cells and helps repair through the RNA function. So transcripting. And so the RNA and magnesium, this is well known, that's a magnesium dependent process. So at every level we're going to have this. So we need to start paying attention to this deficiency first and foremost, and then the other three, vitamin A and D through fermented cod liver oil and fermented or emu oil for the K2, a non-refined emu oil. There's other places you can get it, but this is where it's all about getting a therapeutic dose, because the problem with a lot of this stuff is you can't get to the therapeutic level with some of these doses we're getting in these supplements. So you have to find sacred foods, and a lot of times you can't pay for them in stores. A lot of times they're only sold, well, now it seems online has been the place to go, because you can get things delivered. But anyway, from consumer, I guess. So that's interesting. And so yeah, don't miss out on the magnesium when it comes to Candida. Don't miss out on this. This is going to be one of the, not only from Alzheimer's to autism to any other gut dysbiosis that you could imagine. There's going to be a role played by magnesium in the regularization, getting things back on track, a normalization of these processes. That's what magnesium is doing. Not only in the parasympathetic, smooth tissue, like smooth muscle, lack of contraction, irritable bowel syndrome, and these kind of reduced inflammation through the viscosity of the magnesium. We always forget that magnesium's water-bearing capacity brings about this type of viscosity, but it's attraction viscosity, so there's like a perfect grittiness, and it allows for things to move along at the right pace. And so this kind of flexible nature that magnesium has, where it gets in there and renders things, it basically preserves things through the way that it rounds off the edges and the corners and gives a kind of fluidity to things without becoming overly fluid either, which would be going the wrong direction. There's attraction viscosity there due to the mineral concentration and dispersion in the substance. And so you don't want to play with magnesium, low levels of magnesium in any of these cases. So you want to fix that right away, and that could take 3 to 6 months. So stay tuned for our little message on the type of magnesium to look for, and don't forget to come check us out at thehearttradition.com. When it comes to magnesium, always get the right stuff. Do not go cheap in this area. There's a lot of stuff out there that's $1.50 a week, and we're $3 a week, so you could say it's double the price. But there's a lot of fake stuff out there, even stuff that's pretending to be Zechstein. It's called ancient Permian, genuine Zechstein. There's all sorts of labels out there, and they're self-certified. And the only real official seal that you could find from the Vendam, which is a city in Holland from which this natural salt pillow formation is, where you find this natural state magnesium chloride stone called bischofite in large quantity, is using the logo Zechstein Inside. So if the Zechstein Inside logo doesn't appear, is not on the bottle, it's not from the city of Vendam, it's not the real thing, it's not even from Holland. So there's a lot of fake imports. The word Zechstein can't be controlled, so there's a lot of fake UPS, USP, pharmaceutical grade, and all these different companies, Spray and Permian and Trans, Ancient, and you see these different labelings, and they're using the word Zechstein abusively. So the only way to guarantee the right thing is probably to spend a little bit more. The thing is it's not that expensive. It's $3 a week to knock out the #1 deficiency in the world. And so it's not something that we should play with just getting super cheap on. It's kind of like getting really cheap on our salt and eggs and milk and bread and things like that are so basic. We want to spend money in these areas to where we can ensure a better product, because when it's not coming from the Zechstein Inside and that logo's not on the bottle, first off, it's solvent extracted, it's chemically treated, and so therefore it's not the same at the molecular level as far as chelation, uptake, bonding, conjugation, and all these other membrane transport and connectivity and calcium channel blocking. All the things that magnesium can do are limited by the fact that it's been chemically treated, and it's no longer, I guess you could say, sticky. It's sticky as a substance no matter what they do with it, but it's no longer sticky to a molecular level and able to chelate and make those bonds and conjugations in the right way. So you want to get something that's done right by nature and pure. And so this guarantees that. Not only does it guarantee that, but it also guarantees that people aren't mixing some good stuff with some bad stuff and then selling that as Zechstein or whatever, because as soon as the logo's not on the bottle, you can't rescan that bottle and tell what it is. So there's a way to just keep this fakery going. And so we want to try to find the right stuff. I guess most people, it's not that they're all malintentioned, but it's just that there's this kind of lack of consciousness around the fact that magnesium, well, it's all the same, it's just a mineral, do what you want with it, but it's not. And so the same with milk, the same with bread, everything is different. You just can't say pasteurized, like milk from these industrialized cattle is the same as small Jersey cattle, raw milk, and so it's just worlds apart. And so don't be fooled. So get the right stuff. That's for the first part. The second part is it's in glass. So if you want the right stuff, get it in glass. These glass blue bottles, this is the signature series of the Zechstein Inside, as far as that type of quality that we could use to make sure the product has no endocrine disruptors, no chemical microplastic leaching into the product, and then that, once again, going into the body. Now, you don't want that in the body because we're trying to get those out of the body, and magnesium conjugations help pull that out of the body through enzymes. And so we don't want to bring some in at the molecular level on that same molecule. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. So do the right thing, get it done right, and get the right price point. $25 for 2 months is very cheap, and it's a good price point to cover the deficiency of the century, basically. So come check us out at theheartoftradition.com and get your own.